Okay, let's try this again. Hello, everybody. Sorry about the trouble with the first time at trying to stream this. Yeah, I had problems with the microphone. Hopefully, it's corrected this time, and we can get going. All right, good. I have good sound apparently now. So let's see. First off, let me say thank you to anybody who's joined. I can't remember names, so I can't specify who's joined the group. But, welcome just the same. And this is going to be kind of a rerun of a previous stream that apparently didn't get saved to YouTube for me. And so, what we're going to be talking about today, for those who haven't tuned in on my videos before, we're going to be looking at the Hero System Tabletop RPG. And in particular, we're going to be looking at multipowers. Now, a few things about multipowers to start off with. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say that multipowers are probably the workhorse of the whole system. Any or most superhero characters are honestly probably going to have a multipower of some sort for some reason. And the reason it's called a multipower is because, kind of like a variable power pool, it sets up a pool of points that you can set up powers in. So, in other words, I'm going to set aside 60 points for powers, and then each power underneath the multipower, as I will demonstrate in a moment, are bought as a slot within the multipower. Now, all such slots cannot, all such slots cannot exceed the active points of the multipower. So, you know what? Let's just go ahead and see what the heck I'm talking about. So we're going to do our share screen, and for those that don't know, I operate with the Hero 5th Edition rule set and use the Hero Designer software, which, if you're going to play in this system, I will, as I have every time I've done one of these videos, I will say straight up, best $25 you can ever spend. It takes a lot of the crunchiness out of the system and allows you to make characters with reasonable ease. If you really want to get into the crunchiness of the system and the math involved, I can by all means do a whole stream on what all the math involved goes into. So if anybody wants to see that, I've been playing Hero long enough that I actually know the math in the background. So anyway, let's look at a multipower. So first thing we're going to do is come under File, New Character, 5th Edition rule set, and let's go ahead and make him a superheroic character. And so the standard superhero character has 200 base points. This is points that the character gets for free, and then up to 150 points of disadvantages. Starting character will, of course, have no experience, but what we're interested in is, again, the multipower. So coming over here to the Powers tab, there's this little tab called Power Frameworks, and you'll see multipower at the top, elemental control, and variable power pool. Now, I've already covered elemental controls and variable power pools in previous videos. Feel free to go back and look at those. Today, we're going to look at multipowers. So, new multipower. And here you can name it. So, let's say multi-purpose gun. So kind of like a certain law-abiding and law-enforcing character has a gun that has different types of ammo to produce different types of effects and shots with. So since this is superhero, we're probably doing with a damage class of about 12 to 14, which turns into about 12 die 6 to 14 die 6 of a normal attack. So with that in mind, that's going to be at least 60 points. So let's give some leeway and go to 70 and make it a damage class 14. Now we're going to start out with just a simple straight multipower here at first. So no advantages, no anything like that. Yes, Dason Brillet, but I'm not going to say the name of the characters that are involved here. So, so we've set up our multi-power. Woohoo! All right. Now, we can now come in and do our energy blast since this is a gun. And let's make it PD and let's do a regular shot first. So 70 points is, if I remember correctly, if I do my math in my head, 14 die 6. And here we see you can make it an ultra slot, which divides the cost of the power by 10 to put it under the multi-power. Or you can unclick that and it divides it by 5, and I'll get into what the difference between an ultra slot and a variable slot, as it's called, are in a moment. So let's keep it as an ultra slot, and bam. So 77 points, and we can now have a 14 die 6 energy blast. And so now let's add another power. Let's say we want explosive rounds. So we'll come in here, we'll do PD, and I'm going to leave it at 1 die 6 for the moment because we're going to add a modifier. And we're going to make it explosive. So we're going to do an explosion. All right. We can add several different modifiers like selective targeting. I can make the advantage more and cost more. And now I can choose which targets within the explosive area are actually affected by it. Or I can make it non-selective. Either way, I have to make a targeting roll against every affected target within the area. Non-selective, the difference between selective and non-selective is non-selective affects everybody in the area of effect. So with that in mind, we're not going to make it selective. I don't particularly care to make targeting rolls against everybody in the area that I want to hit. So we do OK. And so we now see that instead of 5 points, the active points is 7. And we can't go above 70. That's how many points we put in the power pool. So we're now also going to... I should move this window back over here so you can see it. I now realize you couldn't. So we're going to click done and OK. And oops, I forgot to add dice to the power. So we can probably run it up to 7 die 6. Nope, or 10 die 6 rather, but it turns out it's only 90. Remember, this active points has to stay below 70. At or equal to. Below or equal to. But I am not doing well today with my ability to speak. So anyway, we'll now click OK, and we now have 2 shots within the multi-power. And it's cost us 84 points instead of 140. Okay, and I think you now can begin to see why a multi-power is beneficial. You've created a pool of points, the 70 points in the multi-power, and then each of these ultra slots designated by you cost 7 points for each slot. So what's the difference between an ultra slot and a multi-slot? With a ultra slot, you can only, whatever points are in that slot, like 70 for both of these, is dedicated. You cannot use less. You cannot change it up any without going through character generation again. So these 2 slots are going to take 70 points of the 70 points of the multi-power. So let's make a variable slot now. Let's say you've got let's say you've got you want to do have the potential of doing a freezing slot or a fire slot at the same time. And so we'll make those both ED because they're energies. And we'll click off the ultra slot. And we'll make the ice portion. So we'll call it Ice Blast. 6 die 6. Okay. And we'll click OK. And you see now it's 6 and M, but only 30 of the points are taken up. So of these 70, I've still got 40 that I can use with that Ice Blast if it is a multi-slot power in there. So now let's add the Fire Blast slot. So Fire Blast. And let's make it 8x6. And now I can use both of those at the same time. Well, I can't really because you can only make one attack per turn. So, but theoretically I could use those at the same time. Where it comes in handy is let's say I actually have a gun that can allow for flight. So that's the thing. And let's say I can make it 20 inches of flight and take off the ultra, and bam. Okay, and I need to edit that to do that. Okay, now I can actually exemplify the multi-slot. What the multi-slot does is I can use up to 70 points between all three of these multi-slot powers. So I can use 40 active points of the Fire Blast and still have 30 points that I can put towards flight, which is 15 inches. Or I can use the full 20 inches of flight and can now use 30 points of the Fire Blast, which will give me 6x6 Fire Blast. So let's say that's like a jetpack that has a fiery black back blast. And so I can start off my flight and torch people at the same time. So this is the difference between the Ultra Slot. The Ultra Slot dedicates that many points from the multi-power to that power. The multi-slot allows you to vary how many of the multi-power points are dedicated to that power. So I could say use 5 inches of flight and then have 60 points left that I could use in another multi-slot. Or even another Ultra Slot as long as it didn't take more than 60 points. Reiterating, the big difference is that an Ultra Slot dedicates that many, however many points are in that slot, out of the multi-power. So if there was 50 points in an Ultra Slot and you had 70 active points in the multi-power, you only have 20 points left that you can put into another power and use them at the same time. So keep that in mind when doing a multi-power. It really does free you up, but limit. Let's go to another example, in fact. A good use of multi-power for a fantasy setting, we'll delete that one, is a shield. So what do you mean a shield? Well, a shield can bash or it can protect you, right? So let's do that. So let's set up another multi-power. Let's set it up for 15 active points. And now we're going to add some common modifiers because a shield should be a focus. So we'll come down here to the focus, and it's an obvious focus, but it's accessible because you can be disarmed from that shield, or the shield itself can be targeted. So it's an obvious accessible focus, and we'll leave it at that. Okay, and it lets you know when you got windows open that you're supposed to do. Done. Yeah, I'm doing well today. So this is our shield, and so due to the the limitation of obvious accessible focus, it cost me 7 points, but I've got 15 points active points in the powers. So what power should I put in it? Well, let's protect ourselves first. So we come in here to skills, and let's see, combat skill levels, and we'll scroll down to DCV. So it protects you. It makes you harder to hit. And we'll give it 3 levels because that's 15 active points. And voila. Now the shield can protect you from being attacked by making your DCV 3 points higher. But let's do the bash now. So we'll close out the skills tab over here in powers. And a bash is probably a hand-to-hand attack. Why not an energy blast? Because an energy blast can be used to blow yourself out of an entangle. A hand-to-hand attack cannot. So, where is it? Hand-to-hand attack, right there. And so, we'll make it 3d6 as well, because it's still 15 active points. And, bam. So now I can shield bash and add 3 dice to my strength attack, or I can use it to cover myself and take 3 points added to my DCV because of the protection of the shield. So this is a classic example of how you put together something with the multi-power. And again, why a lot of superhero characters will have multi-powers. A lot of people have trick shots or trick guns or trick energy blasts. A fire person may be able to project their power as a straight beam, or maybe they can fan it out into a cone in front of them. Just things like that. And it's easy to do it with a multi-power because each version of this power is a slot. And believe me, it's a lot cheaper than something I probably should cover another day, which is variable advantage or variable special effect. Those are advantages you can put on a power that change the power in some way, but add to its cost. They add to its active points, and rightfully so. A variable special effect power could be changed from a fire to an ice blast and take advantage of another character's vulnerabilities. So a lot of people don't like that those add to your damage class, the effectiveness of your power, essentially, your attack, essentially, but they really should. So that's that. So what else can you do with the multi-power? Well, let's go to a list and let's add a separator and just keep going with what we've got again. And so it's screaming at me because the separator counts as a blank list, and you can't put a list within a list. So what's another good multi-power? Oh yeah, let's do a whip. Whip is a great multi-power that you can put together. And let's give it about 15 points again. And I'm not going to go into the whole thing to do with the whip because it's actually a pretty in-depth build, believe it or not. And again, it's an obvious accessible focus. It can be disarmed, it can be taken away, and people see it. It's a whip. So let's do that. Okay, done, and done. And so again, it's 7 points. So what can a whip do? Well, first off, it's telekinesis. What? Can reach out and snatch things back to you, right? So that's telekinesis. That's strength at a distance. So we can add some strength like that and get 9 strength with it. And we probably should add a modifier, another limitation that should be there. Let's see. Let me see if it's there. I should look at these things. Nope, it's not. Oh, okay. It's because it's already there. It's a whip should be no fine manipulation is what I was looking for. Should have looked at the base power. Fine manipulation means you can grab a key, say, with it and turn the key in a lock. You're not doing that with a whip. But you can, say, snatch the key ring and pull it back to you. So no fine manipulation is good. Affects porous. A whip's not going to affect a porous, a gas or some type of porous media like that. So we'll go with that, and bam, we now have that in there. What else can a whip do? Well, it is a hand-to-hand attack. So we'll add 3 dice again to that. And bam. And you can't use the 2 at the same time. So actually, instead of telekinesis, let's do something else. So let's delete that. And let's make it stretching instead. So there's stretching. And so the levels of stretching, we get 3 inches of stretching. So that's game inches. So that's 6 meters. So that's pretty good. And we need to add the modifiers because we need stretching normally has non-combat movement. So we need no non-combat stretching. You can't stretch it for twice its length just because you're going out of combat. And let's see what else. I think that's it. So let's just leave it at that. And so now we've got stretching on there with no non-combat stretching. It doesn't stretch longer at a disadvantage for you or anything like that. It's got a certain length that it can go, which is 6 meters. Remembering that a game inch in the hero system is 2 meters. So 3 inches of stretching, 6 meters. So there we go. We've got a whip using the multi-power because you can't reach out and grab something with it and strike somebody with it at the same time. So that's one way of doing it. And this is one use of the multi-power, or 2 uses of the multi-power. And again, with super heroic, you've got a blaster who has several different types of blast: an armor-piercing blast, no endurance blast, so that they can use it all day long and twice on Sunday, and just such as that. And that's what the multi-power is used for, to put all these powers that draw from the same idea, the same concept, into one little heading. They share a pool of points, and that's it. That's the multi-power. So I can run up all kinds of examples of these things. Let's put in a new separator just in case. So is there a multi-power you would like to see an example of? I've got 2 viewers on, so I'll see if they want to look at something in particular. So while I'm talking, I guess I'll go back to the chat window so you can see more of my lovely face. All right. And the sonic powers. Okay, that's a good one. So let's go back to the screen share. So we'll do another multi-power. We'll make it the campaign limit. Actually, let's just make it 65 points. And we'll say that there's no limitation on the multi-power as a whole because actually let's make it an obvious accessible focus again. It's a gun. So there it is. Why didn't it pop up? There we go. So we'll make it OAF. Bam. We're done. Okay. And so that 65-point multi-power now costs us 32 points. So a sonic gun. Well, what type of energy blast should it have? Well, I'm a big fan of you should have one blast that just as an outright use everything blast. So we'll have an energy blast. 65 points is 13 dice. We will put some charges on this one. Because a gun should only have a certain amount of charges. But let's make it 32. Let's not. That's a plus quarter advantage. Let's make it 16. Okay. Oh, pardon. So there we go. 65 active points, which is the size of our multipower, and it's going to cost us 3 active points, or 3 real points. So there's our first slot. So an all-out 16 times, just an all-out blast. Let's now make one that is a cone. So add modifier, area effect. Let's make it a cone. Okay. And let's make it non-selective. It's going to hit everybody in there. I have to make a targeting roll against all of them, but it's going to hit everybody in there. So we're done with that. So now let's look at limitations, because I think the cone should probably start at the gun. So let's make that no range. Okay, so no range. And let's see, is there anything else we want to play with on it there? Let's put some charges on it again. Let's say, it can only do it 6 times. So, okay, let's be done with it there. And notice I'm making all of these ultra slots. So each die of this blast costs us 9 points. So let's click it up one by one, and that's too much. So we only get 7 die 6 out of it, but it only costs us 2 points for that slot because of the limitations we put on the slot. Yes, another advantage of using charges is that that power costs no endurance. So putting charges on things is a good way of both limiting the power and reducing its cost, as well as making it 0 endurance. So neither of these powers can you use forever, but you've got, between the two of them, you've got, 22 charges now. So let's make one more. Let's make an armor piercing one, because it can blow through. Or actually, no, let's make a no normal defense. The defense being ear covering. So any type of ear covering will make it work. But normally this blast would just automatically do stun. Remember that about no normal defense. You've just rendered the power where it does stun only. So keep that in mind. You could add a +1 advantage back to it so that it does body as well, but there we go. So it's a +1 advantage. So each die is now costing us 10 dice. And let's again put some charge limits on it. No, not focus. Charges. Let's say that takes a lot of energy out of the gun, and you can only do that 4 times. Okay? And let's make it a beam. You've got to attack at full power. It can't bounce. It can't do trick shots. It can't spread. It's a straight line shot, a beam shot at you, or at your target. So let's leave it at that. And let's kick up the dice as high as we can. So we can go up to 60, and then let's do a neat little trick. Let's see if I can add a half. Nope. Let's see if can I add a pip. Yep. So now it's a 6 plus 1 energy blast that I can use 4 times. And unless they've got ear covering, they're taking that damage as stun. Just straight up. They're here, have some. Actually, I probably should have said, or they're deaf. Something like that to stop a sonic blast. So what else could we do? Oh yeah, we could do a flash. So a flash attack renders a sense useless. So it's already got a hearing group. So let's do that. We get 3 dice per active point, or 3 active points per die. I don't think we need to add anything else there, but let's keep with our theme. Let's add some charges. And why did it not pop up? Because I didn't double click solidly enough. Let's run this one back up to 16. Because this is what sonic attacks are good at, right? And let's be done with that. And now we can run that up to 65 points. You know, and 21 dice 6. Right? This means if you hit this on average, hit somebody with this on average, they're going to be deaf for 21 phases. That's on an average roll. So maybe we don't want to do quite that much. Yeah, that's gross. So let's do something more reasonable. We'll use 30 active points and make it 10 die 6. Okay? And so it only uses 30 active points. So Wondergoon has asked for a ranged killing attack. So let's put a ranged killing attack. So that's down here. And let's say it can be used up to the full extent of the power pool. Let's add modifiers to make it have charges. This one we want to limit pretty strongly, so we'll put 4 charges on it, and we'll run it up. Oh, it's screaming at me again. We'll run it. Oops, 105. That was definitely above. So 60 points. It's a 4 die 6 killing attack. This means it's on average going to do, let's see, what is it? 14 body damage. Because remember, a killing attack, the dice rolled determine the amount of body damage, not stun damage. Okay. So let's also make this a multi-slot. And there we go. So if we now have our killing attack. So the Sonic Shriek. And let's see, what can we do else with that? Oh yes, it should be noted that when you decide which power a multi-power is using or which set of powers, you're stuck with that choice until your next action phase. Then you can change them up again. So with this multi-slot, if we had another power that we could use with it, some movement power, say, or something like that, which I can't think of one, so I'm not going to do one. The points I allocate to each of those powers is set until my next action. So keep that in mind about multi-powers as well. You can't just change them willy-nilly between everything. So, so I'm asked now, what happens if you don't want to use the full output of that power? Once again, you don't have to. So even on these ultra slots, this 13 die 6 energy blast, I don't have to use it as 13 die 6. I can use it as 5 die 6. But all 65 active points of the slot are still taken out of the multi-power. Okay, that's the drawback to you making it an ultra slot. You are now using those 65 points whether you use it at full power or not. Okay, so I'm using 65 points even if I only hit you with 5 dice of the potential 13. So that's the drawback to using ultra slots. It's not that much of a drawback, honestly. I've very rarely actually done something that I've used multi-slots. They are useful in a generic way. I mean, you can use this to represent a tool belt that you can say draw various gadgets and gizmos out of, but they're not restricted. I mean, a gun is a gun. It's probably not going to help you fly around or dig into the ground or something like that. Although I suppose we could do that. Let's say you can blow a hole in the ground and allow you to do tunneling. And let's make that a multi-slot too. So we'll use all 65 points and could go through 13 inches through 13 defense. But now because it's a multi-slot, I could use, say, because these two are multi-slots, I could use, say, 30 active points to tunnel through, what would it be? I don't use tunneling that often. So 65, so that's 5 points per inch. So I could use 6 inches of tunneling and use 40 points towards this killing attack, which would be, let's see, a 15, 2 die 6 plus 1, I think. Something like that. 2 die 6, 2.5 die 6. 2 die 6 plus 1. Yeah, I did the mental math well enough. Woohoo! So I could use 2 die 6 plus 1 in this killing attack, and then follow up or have done a 3-inch tunneling. So there's the power of the multi-slot, is you get to divvy up the 65 points in the multi-power between any power that you need to. You can use the full 65 points, or you can use less than that, and you're not penalized like you are with an ultra slot. The thing to remember is the ultra slot, those points are dedicated. You can use less, but those points are still dedicated whether you do or not. So, yeah. It's, people then go, well, why would you want to use ultra slots? Trust me, again, a gun is a gun is a gun. You're not able to, by the rules, to do 2 blasts in 1 round unless you use a 1 phase, 1 action, unless you make it as a compound power, which still has the 65 active point. Let's do that. If we do a compound power, it's still limited total to 65 active points. So, what would be a good one? Okay, we're using sonics with this gun. So let's say we're going to do flash plus a blast. So we'll add a power, we'll add an energy blast, and the thing is we're still limited to 65 points. So let's make the energy blast 45 points of it. And I should put charges on it because that's been a theme of the gun. But now we've still got, let's see, what is it? 20 points that we could use towards the flash. And so we could run that up to 18 points. And we've got a 6 die 6 flash that goes along with it. And now we can do okay. And so now for 3 points in the multi-power, we've got a energy blast that does 9 die 6, but also does a 6 die 6 flash to hearing. Hey, that's pretty cool. But notice again, the compound power still has only 63 active points. So it's still within the 65 active points that the multi-power can have. The general rule, Undergoon says, the general rule of thumb is that you use multi-powers for attacks. Since you can't attack with more than one in a phase, defensive and movement powers are usually placed in an elemental control, which allows you to use all your powers in the EC simultaneously. And to be perfectly blunt, Wondergoon is 100% correct. Every character I've made that, the concept at least, made it realistic to do so, I've had their defensive powers in an elemental control and their attack powers in a multi-power. It seems a little fishy, but there it is. And I've had a firepower that had an offensive power in its elemental control outside of the offensive multi-power. What was it? I put it the advantage of damage shield. They're surrounded by an aura of flames, so one of their defenses is that you get too close, you get cooked. So, and you are welcome, Dason Brillet. I'm glad you get something out of these videos, these streams. So there we have it. Do we have any more questions or comments? Because I love these comments and questions we're getting. They help me keep so much of this straight. And, going back to Wonder Goon's point about use of elemental controls and multi-powers, you can have more than one framework on a character. Let's go back to this menu. So you could have two multi-powers on the same character. I've honestly not done, actually I have done that. I had a character who had some offensive capabilities, but then had a multi-power of movement powers. Because, you only need running or flight or tunneling or teleportation or something like that. Of course, that character had a third multi-power where some of his movement powers were offensive. In other words, they were usable by others. I should probably do a stream on that, but that's another time. Yes, movement powers can be used offensively because you can put usable as an attack, as an advantage on things, folks. And that leaves it where you can put 6 inches of running on a target and you still control the running. So, you control how they run for 6 inches, and they have to because you're in control. So, you can have some really funny things going on. I called that character the Journeyman. That's why, there's a stop sign, I think, or a yield sign, a warning sign against that particular advantage. But like I said, we'll go over that some other time. Today we're left talking about multi-powers, and I'm out of steam. So unless there's some comments or questions from Wonder Goon or Dason, who I think are my only two viewers to the live portion of this stream, I think I'll probably call it a halt here and say, this is my take on multi-powers. Play around with them, learn them. They really are the workhorse of the hero system as far as the power frameworks are concerned. You'll use them pretty much more than you will an elemental control or a variable power pool. Simply because an elemental control takes a unified special effect, a unified concept to the powers that go in it. So something like Falcon powers or something like that. Whereas a multi-power doesn't necessarily have to have a common special effect like that. They often do, but they don't have to. So there's that. And Wonder Goon put in the chat again the link for Hero Designer software. It can be gotten from Hero Games at the link www.herogames.com. Store product One Hero Designer. Or you can pretty much Google Hero Designer and I think it'll pop up as the first link. I may be wrong there, so double backstop me. Anyway, I don't have anything more to say. I think we're good to go. Any questions, comments, or dirty looks, please put them in the comments. And we'll talk to you next time. I will say I do have another stream in mind, this one on martial arts. So that may be your thing, and you may want to stick around and look in again for it. For now, though, have a good day, everybody. We'll catch you later. Bye.